Okay, this was something that I was struggling with for a while the other day, and so I thought, well, maybe this would be worth making a video on in case some other folks were struggling with this too. The idea here is that I wanted to basically use a send and return to go to another device, and there's nothing clearly labelled on the FM9 that says send or return. Now, if you read the manual, it does say things about, you know, effects loops and stuff, but it's not got a ton of actual detail on how to really set this up. So I wanted to kind of go through in this video how you could do that, and hopefully it might help one or two of you other guys if you've struggled with this like me. These videos are brought to you by G66 UK, and that's the place in the UK that you can get an FM3, FM9 or Axe 3 in the UK with no waitlist and a UK service centre. So I was actually trying to do this on a gig the other day, and I ended up kind of Googling some things, checking out a manual. So what I think you might want to do initially with this is try and find two cables that are kind of significantly different colours. So I've got like a cable here which is grey and black. And what you're going to want to do, so for me, I'm going to be using the out 3 as my send, so that's the grey cable, and the in 3 as my return. And for instance, I could plug into the Fractal X load, which will be taken off the speaker load of my real amp. So return goes into the in, so that means the black cable comes in, and the output goes into your amp. So the grey cable will be going into your amp, front of your amp, or into the pedal that you're putting into the loop. Hopefully that makes some sense. Grey send, black is our return, so grey send, black return. The Fractal X load, so I'm going into the amp and then return through here. We have with the Fractal X load and a real amp. That essentially what you want to do is set up this to be wherever you want it to be. So I've got this all post effect, right? So out 3, you see basically on the unit itself, I've got that set to unity gain. I think out 3 all the way up is unity gain. So we drop in our block out 3, so that's our send, and then we drop in also our return as in 3. You could set this up in other ways and use different outputs and inputs, and then my out 1 is my normal output to front of house. Okay, so what you'll notice, and this is an important thing, is that you've got a gate on here by default, so you might want to turn that off, or at least be aware that that's on. Now the other thing that you might notice is that I've got kind of a mono input and mono output of the send and return, so what you'll get might be you'll notice that it's just coming through the left side. So, and on our unit itself, we're going to have to go into our setup, and we can set up our inputs and our outputs. So you see input audio, and our input 3 source is going to be analog, but we can set it to actually be left only, and hopefully that puts our stuff in the center. go right only, we get nothing, some left and right. So that's an important element to get a hold of if you're going to be wanting to put in a stereo pedal there, or, you know, go stereo out and stereo back in. Make sure you're getting into your input and output settings and just checking that for sure. So that's kind of the basics of it. So so I can now add in, for example, all of my stuff is pre. So worth bearing in mind as well that your input 3 and input 2 are stereo, capable of stereo. So you could set your output 3 left and right into your pedal, whatever it is, or just your output 3 in mono form, and then come back in stereo. I think that's worth bearing in mind. So that's just a really simple way that you can think about these. You use your output and your input blocks to basically place that anywhere in your chain like you would a send and return, and you've actually got quite a lot of control in your input and output set up on the FM9. I would have found this quite helpful, I think, if I was looking to do these things. You may also want to consider whether you want this block pre or post effects. That makes a huge difference. Of course, this is at the moment mono, but if I put it so that these things weren't collapsing into my mono device, then I would get some of those benefits of it being stereo. That's just stereo treatment. So very simply, let's just start completely from scratch then. Clear preset, okay. So we need our input and output as normal. So input 1, output 1, set up that. Then in the middle of my chain here, let's just do it here, input 3, that's our return. Output 3, that's our send. Is this going to work? Please work. And that's how you set up an effects return quite simply. So we'll do save a copy, effects, send, and return. That's a simple way to implement it, basically. So give that a try. I'll catch you in another video soon, and hopefully that helps one or two of you. Just position this wherever you want it. You could, for instance, and what I'm going to do for the intro is use a real amp here, and I'll basically set up a cab. This cab 103 we'll use, and then a nice little bit of reverb. We'll use the Ice Castle, that's a nice one. That will be our basic setup. Hopefully that helps you. Cheers for stopping by.